Hey friends, Pastor Michael from Organic Church, here with Sydney Erickson, Pastor Holly Daisy, Nick Offholter, and Pastor Roger Deerdorf. We have a special guest with us tonight, but before she introduces herself, I just want to tell you that our topic tonight is going to be about Christ in the community. We're going to talk a little bit about evangelism. So why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
I'm Elizabeth Morris, and I started a Christian group at my school, and it's a little bit about, we started the Lord's Prayer. It was crazy how I started God's Gang, and I got baptized on November 1st of 2020 and had my group on January 4th, 2021, and that was crazy, how God blessed me with this group. I wasn't thinking about having a group. I wasn't and the next day I went to my teacher and I asked her if I could start a Christian group, and she's like, yeah, we can do something. And she was asking me what I would like to do and how we would what day and what time. Mm-hmm. And so we started it on Tuesdays at 7:15, and it was just amazing. We actually had 8 kids on the first day, and that was amazing.
AM or PM?
AM.
So you had 8 kids at 7:15 AM.
Yeah.
That's good.
That's impressive.
For that age. Yeah.
Well, so let's back up for just a second. I want you to tell the story, but I already have a question. You didn't tell anybody how old you are, what grade you're in, what school you go to.
Remember, they can't see you.
Yes, they can't see your face.
It's a good thing.
Yeah, no kidding. We'd have to throw Roger out of the room.
Not you, Lizzie.
Sorry, go ahead.
So I go to Claymont Middle School. I'm in 7th grade, and I'm 13.
13. Mm-hmm. So are all of the kids in the group around your age?
Yeah. So we have 6th, 7th, and 8th.
Okay. So again, 8 kids at 7:15.
Yeah.
Not just 8 kids awake at 7:15, but pressed, dressed, and
not they didn't
in
even
a
know
group.
what they were expecting either.
In a group.
Yeah.
I can't get my kids out of bed at 7:15. So, okay. Go ahead.
That's impressive.
It was just amazing how everybody came, and I had to be there before, so I was there at 7 o'clock. Mm-hmm. And one of my teachers gave me this big Bible. It was a Holy Bible, and we sat it outside, and all these kids came in at once, like a group of them, and it was just amazing. And one of my teachers came in, and she gave me a paper, and she said, "Let God do the work." And that was amazing, because I was so nervous, because I was freaking out nobody was going to come, or because since it's a Christian group, you wouldn't think nobody will come, but God's Gang has grown over the past couple years.
I was going to ask, so it started with 8.
Yeah.
Now, do you know how much you're up to?
We have 13.
13.
Yeah.
Almost doubled.
Yeah, that's about the size of our Sunday morning congregation. Well, that's about the size of our Sunday morning congregation before we go into prayer.
Right.
Because we go into prayer at, you guys go in at 9:30. I join you guys about 9:45. And it's usually 10, 12 people in the sanctuary about that time. You come back out, though, and it looks a little different. So 13 people you said now?
Yeah.
Okay. So how often do you meet?
We now actually do Tuesdays and Fridays.
You meet twice a week?
That's awesome.
And most of the time, 13 people come.
Oh, yeah.
All the same kids?
Oh,
or?
yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, now, are you the one constructing all of the background, just the behind the scenes, I guess?
Yeah.
Yeah? Is that a lot?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So I know what goes into a Sunday morning for me, and I'm sure Holly, a Wednesday, a Thursday, a Monday, a whatever night. There's a lot to that. So this isn't just a Tuesday, Friday gig.
Yeah.
You're working on this all week long, right? Okay. So tell us a little bit about your process.
Her mom's back there
Shaking her head. Yes. Yes. She never stops. She never stops. I hear that a lot. I hear that from Doug quite a bit, that she's always on the go. So
yeah, I listen to Christian music every day, every morning, and I just read the Bible, and it's crazy. I'll read one scripture and then I'll read it again, and there's something different. I'm not paying attention.
Yeah. Well, they say that the word is alive, and exactly in that manner, there's always something new to see. You know, when I read Lazarus is my favorite story. Everybody knows that. But just this last time when I read it whenever I was preaching last Sunday. It was from the perspective of Martha and Mary instead of Jesus or Lazarus or whatever. And it's always so interesting to me how that happens. Like you can pull so much different information or different perspective every time you read something.
It's that fresh revelation.
Yes. Yeah.
So to be clear, so you started this group
And
by
so-
yourself. This was your idea,
Yeah.
and you pushed for it.
Yeah.
So there was no existing Christian groups before
Yeah.
you started this.
There was an 8th grader who's now in 9th grade. There was a lot of Christian groups before I was in the middle school, and I forget what their names were, but there was more than one Christian group.
But were any alive whenever you
I
started
was going
this
to
one?
say your age.
No.
No. Okay. So you've got the only one currently
Yeah.
at Claymont Middle School.
Yeah.
Okay. You're in what grade?
7th.
7th. So you've got all the way until 8th.
Yeah.
So you've got next year.
Yeah.
Right? So what happens whenever you go to become a freshman? What happens to that group?
We're going to try to keep God's Gang at the middle school and have one in the high school.
Okay. So will you hand then like your leadership part to somebody else?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Who's your faculty advisor?
Mrs. Tulak, Lindsay Tulak.
Okay. I know who she is.
I was going to ask that.
Yeah. So is she invested in the group? She comes on the.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nice.
Yeah. We can't be like alone. We have to have somebody with us.
Sure.
Lame.
And
Lame.
but it's always fun. Like we joke around and it's just amazing.
Yeah.
It sounds like a podcast.
Yeah. That sounds like a podcast. I know. So I think we also need to back up just a little bit because I think it's fair to say, if anybody hasn't figured it out yet, Elizabeth attends
Here. Yes.
Organic Church.
Yes.
So like that's important for us to talk about. And I had the pleasure of baptizing her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when she said that, I'm like, wait, that was the same day I
That
got
was when
baptized
you
by
got-
you. Yeah.
Did you remember what day it was?
I did.
Okay.
yes.
So I have no idea what day I got baptized. None whatsoever.
See, the only reason I remember is because it was like the day after Halloween. I'm like, well, that'll be easier to remember.
Gotcha. Yeah. Mm-mm. No, I was like, I could not have pulled that date out had I had to.
Well, when she was like saying the day she got baptized, I'm like, mine's pretty easy to remember just because it's like, oh, day after Halloween.
Yeah.
But I'm like, oh, wait, it was the same day I got baptized. So it was easy to remember.
So you were baptized here, and then regular Sunday attender. Let's be super clear about that.
Yeah.
But what's interesting is, as a Pentecostal church, you have to be careful about that kind of stuff inside of your group, right?
Yeah.
Because it has to remain fairly non-denominational
Yeah.
in order to not freak people out, right?
Yeah,
like
for
you
sure.
start speaking in tongues and laying hands on people.
Bringing
Yeah.
the snakes out.
Yeah, getting the snakes out, people running for the border, right?
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about just as you started to come here with your mom.
Yeah.
Just tell us a little bit about that and just the walk into where you are now.
Yeah. When I started coming here, I went to a Nazarene church and I was kind of freaked out like when I started coming here.
Yeah.
But then
That's what we do.
and it was after I started coming, I got used to it and I started
Right.
asking questions and I was just loving it because I never I had a relationship with the Lord, but I wasn't I didn't know him really, really well until
Yeah.
I came here.
Almost
Sure.
like you knew of him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the main topic is talking about Christ in the community, and I'm dealing with a kind of unique pastoral situation that blends into personal situation that I want to share a little bit about, and then I want to get perspective from everybody at the table. And it's this: I had somebody say to me, "Well, I've already sinned, so I've already let God down. So what's the point in trying?" And my response was very not Michael, but very godly wisdom. And I said, so it sounds to me like Jesus dying on the cross wasn't enough to save you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's what it sounds like, right?
Yeah,
If
like
you're
that's what
telling
he's
me
saying.
you're not worthy, it's not that you're not worthy. You're saying that what he did wasn't good enough.
Or what he did was pointless in a way.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Because that's what.
And so whenever we're dealing with people in the community who are non-believers, and the thing is your age, in school, you probably experience more of that than you do of believers.
Yeah.
Because maybe they are believers and can't make it there or whatever, but let's just make the assumption that if her group is, well, how many kids are in your school? You have any idea?
Like 400.
Okay, so 13 out of 400
Right.
attend. So that would be like probably 3 churches in our community versus the number of people in the community
Yeah.
actually attending. So there are a lot more non-believers than there are believers.
Yeah.
So how do we handle those situations whenever people either think that they don't deserve what God has done for them or don't believe that God is capable of
done.
doing it?
Yeah.
Give him your testimony.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What God
Your
did for
personal
you.
testimony.
Yeah.
Remind him that he's a forgiving God.
Yeah.
You know, God forgives. He puts it up, wads it all up, throws it into the sea of forgiveness. He never looks at it again. Then the challenge is we need to forget ourselves.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
in those situations, those ones specifically, how do we, and I don't want to say convince because I don't think we have to convince
Yeah.
people to stop, but we have to help them to realize that like continuing to go back to it and look at it is not, it's not fruitful for you. You're drinking poison at that point. You're just, you're killing yourself. How do we convince people that that's not the way? Like you've been forgiven. This is that's it.
Well, I even tell myself coming to the podcast, a lot of times I'll tell myself, I'm imperfect. I don't do everything right. I sin, but I'm still going to go do the Lord's work.
Sure.
And you remind yourself of that all the time, that yes, I'm imperfect. I'm probably always going to be imperfect to a certain degree, but I'm always going to go do the Lord's work. And that's what he's concerned about.
Yeah. I think you said it on another episode of the podcast. I aim for perfection, hoping to reach excellence.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm never going to be a perfect creature.
Never.
Nobody is going to be a perfect creature.
Yeah.
You know what's funny? Can I just say this? Can I tell a story? We there have been some Sundays that, and Nick has even called me out on this, like where I preached the second half of the message through my teeth because somebody has done or said something that's gotten me angry. But it's funny because there are people that we all know who think that they are perfect.
Yeah.
Sunday morning, they sit and they think that they are perfect and that they've got it all figured out. And I think to myself, man, I wish I could just explain to them
Yeah. But,
how that's not true.
yeah. Not one
That's a
bit.
spirit of deception.
Yes, certainly. And but the problem becomes is you offend people when you tell them you are not perfect.
Yeah.
You're like, whoa.
But you know, that's okay
Well.
because the truth sets you free.
Well, and
right.
the thing is, and this is what I always say, and this is where when my apology comes next week, I always aim to offend the flesh and convict the spirit. If your flesh is offended because of something spiritual that has been said to you, you're upset about the wrong thing.
Yeah.
You're not
You're not
focused on
seeing
growth.
the-
You're focused on feeling.
Well, that's the spirit that's running loose over the whole earth is the offense.
Yeah.
You know, everything offends everybody. And that's one of Satan's main cards.
Yeah.
Is, you know, once he can get you offended, then he brings division, and then it's just like domino effect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm offended by people who drive foreign cars. Right. That's stupid, right?
And solar panels.
Solar panels. I'm offended by solar panels. It's just stuff like that. Like, but people genuinely believe that. Like, they can find any reason. The reason I said that is I'm watching a man called Otto. Have any of you
Oh
seen
my
it?
Yeah, I've
goodness,
seen
I
it.
love it.
I have not finished it, so don't spoil it for me. But I can't watch a movie in one sitting. Like, I sit there for 30 minutes and I'm like, I've got to go do something. But anyhow, it's a great movie so far. But he has this rift with a friend of his because he drives a Ford versus a Chevy, and then
Well, and of course, it's got all the bells and whistles, like showing him how to back up.
yeah,
And he's getting all upset and offended over that.
yeah. And then his friend trades that car and he ends up with a Toyota. And he's like not having it with the Toyota. He, as a matter of fact, he brings him a bottle of scotch or something, and he says, "Hey, let's make amends." And the guy sits the scotch down to open the garage to show him this new Toyota. The guy just picks the bottle up and walks away. He just like, nope. But people get offended. Like
Yeah,
that's
that fractured the relationship,
yeah,
right?
right.
Yeah.
But that's the world today. Do you know what I mean? So, and again, looking at your age group, like it's so easy to be worked up about like who's wearing nicer shoes. Like we focus on the things that don't really matter.
Like you're not going to remember who wore those type of shoes.
Yeah.
I will tell
10
you,
years from now. Like,
I tell you the truth. Verily, verily, I say unto you, I don't even remember 90% of the people I went to high school
exactly.
with.
Me
exactly.
either.
I don't. And like they'll send me a friend request on Facebook and I'm like, who is that?
Yeah, you're so worried about, oh, what are they going to think of me when I
Right.
attend this
Yeah.
this study group for the Bible? Like,
Yeah.
well, no one remembers. No one cares to remember. Like,
Well,
If you asked me to name 3 people on my high school football team, I couldn't do any.
perfect example.
None. 0. But they felt like they had clout because they were on the football team or because they were a cheerleader. None of that matters.
No, not at all.
No, I mean, honestly, how old am I? Am I 36? I think I'm 36. I'm somewhere in that range. I'm between 35 and 40.
Yeah, I was going to say we got to phone Alyssa.
Yeah. Phone a friend.
well, tough question, Elizabeth. You don't have to name names. Don't name names. But have you met any opposition over this group?
Or name names. We're
what
okay with that.
You know. no, we don't.
Nick's like, please don't. Please
Yeah,
don't.
Just,
Yes.
okay. And how have you dealt with that?
I just pray. Like it's like the easiest, like the best thing you could do for that. Just pray for them and try to lift them up. That's what I usually do.
Your advisor, is she aware of some of those happenings?
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm sure she has you have her support and stuff
Yeah.
too.
Tell me about those, though. Like, does it happen often?
No, not often. I just actually had something happen like the past week, and I told her, and I thought it was kind of funny, but and I couldn't believe that the kid said what he said, but I said, you need Jesus. I really did. I told him right in front of him. I said, you need Jesus.
Yeah. You really need
Y'all need
Jesus.
Jesus.
You really need Jesus.
Good answer.
Yeah. That's like playing Family Feud. We all clap. Good answer. Good answer. Yeah. You're probably too young for that, aren't you? Yeah. She's too.
Like,
Is she
what's
too young for
that?
Family Feud?
Might be.
Yeah.
I think Steve Harvey's still
Especially,
doing it. But
especially, this version
Yeah.
right now. Yeah.
Now, Nick, I have to ask. Is your Maggie? Are they the same age?
I think Maggie's a year younger, right?
I do know her. I asked her
Yeah.
if she wanted to come to God's gang.
yeah, but she can't get up at 7:15 in the morning.
No.
That is so funny you say that, because I was telling Chase, I was like, oh, we're having Lizzie on tonight, and then he's like, Lizzie, and he knew who you were,
Yeah.
but then he was like confused with Maggie because you guys sit so close to us.
Okay.
He's like, Maggie's like, she has a group. Like, he can't see Maggie
No.
a group.
She's so backward. I mean,
Oh,
it's-
goodness.
Yeah.
He's like, no, now Lizzie, I can see has a group.
Like she had her first dance. I think it was last week.
Yeah.
Well, we pull up to the side of the curb, and her friend's supposed to be there. Well, her friend is like over on the other side of the
Building.
parking lot or the building there. And so I pull up to the side, and she's like, "No, not here. Drive clear over to my friend." She would not get out and walk across,
Oh gosh.
the front of the
Well,
school to get to her friend.
I think
And
that's normal. Like Mallory does the same thing. Like, and even like so many girls anymore. Like, will you go to the bathroom?
Yeah,
with
I
me?
was
I'm
gonna
like,
say
I'm
that.
going myself. Like I've
Yeah.
never been that
Yeah.
way, but I think there's more than not anymore.
Yeah.
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 So
I've
for her to
always
join a group, a people she really doesn't know,
Not gonna happen.
It's tough.
Yeah, not gonna
That's
happen.
a tough one for her.
But she likes to play softball,
Yes.
right?
That's a
Sometimes.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Well, she plays. Likes to
She
play
does,
as a
yeah.
strong.
Once she's in there, she likes
Okay.
it.
Yeah.
So, well, that's kind of like, I think we all probably do that, right? Or am I the only one? Like,
No,
I'm
I
like,
just
oh,
did that last night.
I'm gonna go see a movie with my friends, and about 20 minutes beforehand, I'm like, how do I get out of
That's
this?
exactly. I did that last night.
How
I was
do I
like,
get out of this?
oh, I
I'm
want to
like
go.
that.
I want to go hiking with my friend, and then last night comes and it's hiking time, and I'm like, oh, it's raining. Maybe I'll get out of it.
Yeah.
Like, and I told Chase, just go. I just need to go because I'm gonna be so happy when I do
Yeah.
go. And I was like, all right, go. And I was so happy I went.
Yeah, there's just something in our brains that don't compute, but
Mm-hmm.
that's, yeah. So, but once she got used to those girls on the softball team, she was probably good.
Sure. Yeah.
But it's just that connection, being
Yeah.
able to
Oh,
make
yeah.
that connection.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't want to talk specifics because it's probably not I don't know all of the details, but you had an interesting person become part of the group who wanted to lead the prayer.
Yes.
Yes. And did you allow them?
I let them read the devotion.
Okay.
But that was it.
Okay. And how did that go, though?
Oh, it went good.
See,
Yeah.
here's the thing that I think that her generation is going to do better than any of us sitting in the room. They are going to be more accepting to people that aren't like them
Because love is love. Like,
and be able to show them Jesus, though.
Right.
Like, I don't always know obviously I don't always know what's right and wrong. Can we agree?
Evidently.
Can we agree on that? My wife knows, but I don't. And so, so the idea is, though, that I think that her generation will be able to say, hey, you can come be part of what we're doing. We don't necessarily agree, but we still love you.
yeah.
We as a body of believers are pretty good at that, but there are still some of us who are so incredibly
Set in our like old ways.
that we just can't even fathom having some people around us.
Yeah.
There are remember when COVID, like they forced us to close the building.
Yeah.
Like that's a disease, a virus that you can get from one another, and they made us close the building. The church, most churches would close if they saw somebody unlike them trying to come in. No. We're just going to close for the day.
Yeah.
Like we don't want to catch whatever it is that they
Right.
might have. But most of the time, it's just perspective.
Yeah.
It's just perspective. So
I remember one time at Table Talk, we had this young girl get saved, and she was a stripper. And she got saved through Table Talk. And the women, oh my gosh, they were so rude to her because she dressed provocative.
Yeah.
But that was
That'll
her.
come.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I was like, God says, come as you are.
yes,
Right.
yes.
Come
And-
as you
The
are.
rest,
if-
the rest will come.
And if
later.
we truly believe that, if we truly believe that, this place would be full every single Sunday. But people know that when they walk into a church, and I'm not saying the church or a church,
Yeah.
but a single person in a building can force people to feel unwelcome.
That's right.
Yeah,
That's
for
right.
Sure.
A single
For sure.
person. I bore witness to it at one of Holly's meetings. I happened to be in the church working. I was in my office. They were having a women's meeting, minding my own business, just trying to get stuff done. And that never happens if I'm in the building. Roger comes and
long as
rips a
Roger's
stump
here.
out. Yeah, exactly. He starts 3 more projects for me. Anyhow, in my office, minding my own business, and in walks one of our congregants, and they're like, Pastor Michael, this just happened, and it's insane. And I was like, okay, well, fill me in.
Yeah.
So they fill me in, and like one of our congregants said something so incredibly forward, not offensive. It wasn't really an offensive statement. It was an incredibly forward statement to somebody that they didn't even know that person got up and left.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, why would we even do that?
Do that. Yeah.
Because we didn't give them the opportunity to see the love of Christ before we said, "Hey, you're living life wrong."
Yeah.
We just
Now, I
Spill
got to
it.
ask, have you seen that person in church since?
nope.
Which is awful.
Yep.
Yeah. And they probably have that bad taste in their mouth.
And now they have
one.
now they possess that church hurt
Yep. Yep.
because of us
Yeah.
or because of a person in
that
our
was
building,
here. Mhm.
and Jesus pays the price for that. Like they lose that relationship with Christ because somebody couldn't just keep their mouth shut. So, but I think that Lizzie's generation will do a better job at that.
Lizzie, we're keeping you accountable.
Yeah, you're responsible. You're responsible for your whole generation, okay? And the generation after that, and the generation after that. It's all on your shoulders. You got this. No pressure. So, the first part that I had pulled up here is that I believe that the church is responsible for leading people to engage in cultural issues. Now, I say that a little tongue in cheek. I think it is our responsibility to help guide conversation on cultural issues in a loving way.
Yeah.
Amen.
Yeah.
So like, I don't want to lie because I'm in church. I am an incredibly political person. I love politics. I'll tell you what, if I could do any one job in the world, it would be to be a politician because I just love to debate, argue. I love politics, love everything about it. But I'm probably the least political pastor you will ever meet. Like when people talk to me about politics, I'm like, This is not a conversation for me now. My wife and I will have those conversations, but I will not. Like, I had somebody say to me once, "Are you going to tell people? We're going to remind people to go vote?" And I said, "Nope.
No.
That's their responsibility.
Yeah. Like,
It is
you
not my
already know.
responsibility to tell you to go and vote. It is your responsibility." But I believe it is our responsibility to lead that cultural engagement or that those cultural issues, to engage the community in having conversation with us. Like, hey, here's why we think that way. It's not that we don't like you.
Right.
We love you, but we don't love what's happening in your life. But we also don't love what's happening in 90% of the lives of the people sitting in our building. So I want to be
Seriously.
super clear
Seriously.
that has nothing to do with you, has everything to do with us.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is flesh. That's what we're fighting against. We're fighting against those evil spirits that are dragging our flesh down. But we struggle to be able to differentiate. We feel like we can't talk about cultural issues without being political. You know, when the word liberal or conservative starts to fly in the conversation, it's done. It's over, because now
blue and red.
all we're doing is offending. We're not. We're dividing. We're not bringing together. So, yeah. What do you guys think about that? I think COVID was a big one.
Oh,
I think the church really took a beating during COVID, because there were some pastors, I will not name the name of the church, but this church took an absolute brutal beating on their live stream because the pastor stepped into the pulpit and said, "Just shut up and get the shot already."
Oh.
And man alive, did he pay for that? Did he pay for that? And they, to the point where they had to take the live stream down because there were just so many comments about it. And I think we stopped seeing eye to eye when we were all locked in our houses for so long, and we couldn't communicate with one another unless it was through social media, and we couldn't be nice. So, Lizzie, do you have social media?
No.
Good idea.
Good.
Keep it that way. All the way through your adult life, keep it that way.
Okay.
Do you
Only-
have a phone?
Only have it if you absolutely have to. Like, I have to have it for work.
For work, yeah.
But don't engage. Nothing good ever comes from anonymous conversations. And yeah, I might know your name if you message me, but I may never see you in my entire life. I had a lady message me from like North Carolina. She wanted to buy something I had for sale. And I'm like, I'm not mailing it to North Carolina. And she's like, "But you've got it for sale." I'm like, "Right.
Yeah.
For local pickup. Come pick it up if you want it." And she was so mad, said the nastiest things to me. And I thought, what is wrong with this world? And it's because she knows I'll never see her face.
Yeah.
You can like,
Oh, for sure.
I forget
Like the
who's-
keyboard warrior.
Yeah, I forget who said it, but somebody said this generation has become far too comfortable with arguing with somebody and not being able to be punched in the face. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
when I was growing up, if my brother and I got into an argument, he socked me in the face. Guess what? I stopped arguing, right? Like,
Yeah, because you're face to face having that argument.
correct.
Yeah.
Correct. There's some in person, like you're able to feel emotion, like sitting behind your people, like they thrive on it. They love to do it.
Well, you can't see, you can feel in typing how somebody, but you don't see that on their
Yes.
face.
No.
No.
And they have time to think about what they're going to say.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so if I'm going to chew you up and spit you out, it's hard for me to do that looking right in your eye.
Exactly. Because if it was me, I'd be like, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Start
I'm
muttering.
sorry, I didn't mean to.
Start crying and running away.
And I've got a prime example of that. So I went to Disney for one day. Okay. Disney to me is not as magical as it is for other people.
Me
but,
neither.
But I knew I wanted to go with my kids
Yeah.
one time. So my parents took Emmett, Easton, and Adeline and drove down. Aaron, Aiden, Alyssa, and I flew down for one night. Okay. We went to Magic Kingdom. Now, the highlight of this trip is the parades that run through Main Street. Like they start at one end of the park, they come through Main Street. That's the exciting part. So we're standing on Main Street right in front of the castle waiting to see the parade. And this young guy didn't speak English, stepped in front of me with his daughter. Now I am standing right against Adeline. She's sitting on the ground right in front of my feet, and my feet are spread around her so that nobody will step on her.
Yeah.
And he steps up, and that's fine. You know, he puts the kid on the ground, and then he picks the kid up, puts the kid on his shoulders, and now nobody behind him can see.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Hey, that's not very cool.
Yeah.
Like, you squeezed through the crowd, you did this." His wife comes up beside him, and she's standing there with him, and she's like, "Can you make room for my mom?" And I'm like, "No." Like, my daughter is sitting right here, and I'm
here.
just like purposely making it so nobody can step on her.
Yeah.
And she gets really, really angry with me, starts to yell at me. And I'm talking like she be loud. Like, and not saying nice things. And I said to her, I said, I want your kid to enjoy the parade just as much as I want every other kid to enjoy the parade. This isn't about me enjoying the parade.
Yeah.
This is about my kids being able to not get stepped on by everybody else around them. And so the parade's about halfway over, and her mom is behind me, and she doesn't speak a lick English either. And she is just on and on. And I know she's mad. Like, I know she's mad. Like, she is letting me have it. And finally, the lady turns around and she says something to her mom, and her mom stops and she looks at me and she says, I'm sorry. She's like, we were really rude. She's like, we should be able to apologize to one another whenever things happen that are unacceptable. And I said, you're exactly right. I said, and I'm not upset with you at all. Like I said, I want him to be able to enjoy the parade.
Just as much as Adeline. Yeah.
But we were in person.
Right.
Had we been online,
Oh, yeah.
her mom would have just kept typing and saying mean things, and off we would have gone, and nobody would have, like, there would have never been any in-person apology. And I think that's a big part of what's wrong with the world today. It's super easy to hate one another.
When you can't see them.
Well, it's easy to hate one another, right, when you can't see them, and it's really hard to love one another when you can't see them. When you can't.
It just amazes me that people have the ability to proofread their temper before they hit
Literally,
send.
yeah.
And they still hit send.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Yeah. I have typed, I can't tell you how many, not Facebook messages, but typically text messages to somebody. And I'm like, you know what? Backspace. Like, I don't need to send that. I don't need to send, because it's not fruitful if I send that.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, don't get me wrong. Sometimes.
you know, Lincoln had a great tool that he used. If he was upset with somebody, he would write a letter to him, but he wouldn't send it. He put it in a drawer, file it away, and then he would kind of think about it. And most of the time, he wouldn't end up sending
Never
that
got
letter.
sent, yeah.
But he would get it out. You know, he would write the letter just to get the
Get it
emotion
out
out
the
and
system.
get his
That's-
thoughts down, and then he would put it away. And then,
That's your
but we can't do that. you know.
question for Sunday for everyone to.
Yes, that's my
Grab
question
on.
for Sunday. That's my question for Sunday. What was Lincoln's form of how do we want to say that?
Self-control.
Self-control.
go.
There we go.
Very
What was
good.
Lincoln's form of self-control? That's a good one. Okay.
Lizzie, we kind of tangent a lot. I'm sure
Yeah.
you
Oh,
listen.
yeah.
But
And jump in at any point. If you're like, hey, want to talk about my stuff?
guys,
Shut
I'm
up.
here.
That's fine. Okay. It's perfectly fine. But I think we should stop being afraid of cultural issues. We should avoid politics. I believe that wholeheartedly. I think that,
well, and I think a lot of people are like, oh, cultural issues equals politics.
right.
No.
And it doesn't.
No.
It doesn't at all. Because if we go back and we look at, I mean, there were cultural issues in the Bible. Like, I think you can look at all of the
Yeah.
cultural issues in the
the
Bible.
issues, yeah.
And I mean, I never once, at least not that I could read in the Gospels, ever read about Jesus punching anybody or sending a mean tweet. You never read that because that wasn't the idea. So,
You know, we have
sad.
a lot of responsibilities as Christians,
yeah,
Yeah.
but
it's easier to be a sinner.
it is.
Oh, yeah.
A lot easier.
But the most
Way
important thing
easier.
at the end of the day is to love one another. That trumps everything else.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, we have a lot of things that we have to work on. We want to reach our community.
Right.
As Christians, we want to stand up for what God wants, for what God believes. But if we try and start criticizing and trying to manipulate or trying to force a certain idea on somebody
Yeah.
and judge, and we get to the point where we're judging
Yeah.
people,
Yeah.
you know, then we're not loving.
Yeah.
And I think if we're not doing that, then everything else just, you know, we backpedal. Everything else just doesn't work.
It's like worse
there's-
than even
you know,
saying anything
so
at all. Like,
It's like
yeah.
you got to work on, you got to center yourself up with God. And I kind of thought about this with the tithing thing too last week, and I don't think I mentioned it, but you know, you can't be looking to your neighbor all the time. Like,
Right.
well, maybe I should be doing what they're doing,
Yeah.
or maybe I should be farther ahead than I am, or you know. And
It's
you can't
not a
do
race.
that.
It's not a
right.
race.
It's not a race.
No,
You
you're
can't
not
do that.
keeping
You
up
have
with
to
the
center
Joneses.
yourself up. Center yourself up with God, and form that relationship with Him. And then once you form that relationship with Him, then you can handle the other things.
Right.
You know, with more tact and more, you know. But if we're not loving at the end of the day, if that's not the main tool that we're using, then it usually doesn't end up very well.
Yeah, I mean, duct tape, rope, and a shovel feel like the easiest tool to use, but
Yeah.
love is the right tool
And
to
it's
use.
tough being Christian sometimes when you know the right and wrong of it, and you believe in it so strongly, and you want these other people to believe in it. So that's the challenge as a Christian, is how do we stand up for God's principles, but at the same time do it in a loving way
Yeah.
that makes people want to come to us
Yeah.
instead of
And you have to
running in the opposite direction.
You have to meet them where they're at.
Yes.
Like you're
Yeah.
further along in your journey. They might not
Yeah.
even have
Yeah.
ever heard Jesus.
and you have to have
before.
empathy. You have to remember, well, probably at some point you were back there.
Yes.
You can't
Exactly.
forget where you
Exactly.
came from.
Yeah.
No.
You know,
It was empathy that took Christ to the cross.
Yeah.
right.
It was that deepest of loves.
Yep.
And Proverbs 17:17 says that a friend
Leave it to Holly to
loveth-
pull us back in. Good job, Holly.
Proverbs 17:17 says that a friend loveth at all times. And so no matter what, you're making mistakes and you're kicking rocks and whatever, you love that person. You love them through it. You show the grace of God. You show them, wasn't it extended to us? I was just talking to the ladies Monday night that his mercies were new every single day.
Yeah.
And so shouldn't we extend that to our brothers and sisters and to the unlovely
Yeah.
to be able to say, hey, I understand and God's got the circumstance and I choose to love you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And in this community,
Yes. Nick, you said something about whenever you said that love has to be our primary tool. Ladies, I'm not talking to you, so you sit there quietly for a second, okay? I've got a question for the men.
I'm phoning Alyssa now.
I've got a question for the men now. How often do you say the words "I love you" in a day's time?
Oh, probably just to my wife. So
Okay.
however, maybe
So, do you find yourself saying it to your kids?
not as much as my wife. No.
Okay. So, your dad has recently, semi-recently passed away.
Yeah,
When
both
he-
my parents are gone. Yes.
Okay. So, but when they were alive, how often, as an adult, did you tell them that you loved them? If you have to
I
think
don't-
about it, it's probably
you
not
know,
as regularly
well,
as we would hope.
If I can be honest, I've had a lot of issues with my son. Like I haven't seen him in almost 2 years.
Sure.
So it's been a tough relationship. He's on his own path. He wants to do his own thing. No amount of love is like influencing
Yeah.
this child to change his direction.
Sure.
But him and I have had a lot of confrontations, and I've had to go through a lot of, fatherly sit down, conversations. But those conversations have never ended with me telling him how much I love him. No matter how upset with him I am, no matter how much I wish he would, do what I want him to do. I can say I've never failed to end any conversation without letting him know just how much I love him. So maybe that's a good example of, I guess I could yell at him and be judgmental for what he's doing. And, but I don't think I've ever handled it that way. And sometimes, you think, well, maybe I should. Maybe that's the problem. It's because I'm being too nice. I'm trying to be too good of a father.
Sure.
But honestly, that's how I am. I always, in most situations, I want people at the end of the day to know, no matter what's happened, no matter what the situation is that I love them.
Sure.
So being a kid and trying to think about how many times I told my parents that, probably not as often when I lived with them. Now, of course, once I kind of moved away, I didn't see him as often. So if
Yeah.
I would see him once or twice a week, I think I generally would tell him
Okay.
I love him before I hung up the phone or before I left the house.
Roger, how about you?
What was the question? I was getting a coffee.
I was going to say, he was
Yeah.
too busy getting his coffee.
Yeah. Okay, so Nick said that our primary tool should be love.
Right.
How often? Because your kids all live a fair distance away,
Yeah.
right? So when you talk to your kids, do you tell them you love them every time you hang up the phone with them?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, when your parents were alive, did you tell them that you loved them often? Like as an adult. As an adult.
Yeah, probably.
I'm an absolute failure.
I'll say, I think I'm where you're at. Like, and it used to be when I was in the house, like,
Right.
love you, dad. But
Yep.
now it's kind of him saying it first to me.
Yes.
Well, maybe we should rephrase the question. Yeah, we all say, yeah, I love you. Got to go.
Yeah, no.
But
no.
how many times do you actually
Like, do you
tell them?
look at
Mean
somebody
it
and
and
say,
say, "I love
hey,
you."
I appreciate you. I really
Yeah.
do genuinely love you. Because I think about when I get into conversations with people who, oh, well, my parents are gone. And I think about Alyssa. She lost both of her parents.
Yeah.
She can't tell her mom that she loves her.
Right.
So like that reels in her mind. Did I tell her enough? And for me, both of my parents are still alive. And I'm like, nah, I don't really like either of them. Just kidding. Just kidding. Just kidding. I love both of my parents. But how often do I tell them that?
You
do you know
take
what
it
I
for
mean?
granted.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then I think about my kids too. So I have a rule, and this is an unspoken rule, but it lives in my head. And this is no surprise to anybody listening or in the room, I'm a yeller. Like when somebody does something I don't like, I just shout because it's the easy tool, right? But I don't like to yell at my kids before bed. I won't. If I shout for whatever reason, like, oh my gosh, go get your pajamas on, I still always make sure that I tell them that I love them before they go to bed.
Yeah.
I hate to think that my kids would be going to bed wondering whether or not I love them. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
And so that's a big deal for me. So Adeline has this, her and I have a bedtime routine, and it's good night, I love you, God bless you. And then she does, Jesus loves you, so do I. And then I always tell her, good night, sleep tight, don't let the zombie bed bugs bite. And she says, it's just bed bugs. Good night, sleep tight, don't let the zombies bite. It's just bed bugs. But we do this whole back and forth thing. And she, like, if it doesn't happen, she's coming to find me.
That's how my dad and I were. It was night, love you, sweet dreams. Don't let the bed bugs bite. And then I say, if they do bite them back. And then I'd say, don't forget to check up on me. And like, if I wouldn't hear him like come check on me for like an hour and a half, I'm like, stomping down the stairs. Why didn't you check in on me?
Yeah. And so Emmett is incredibly soft. He's incredibly emotional. And so he will, this is no joke, he will wait up for 3 hours for Alyssa to get home to tuck him in.
No.
He won't sleep unless Alyssa has tucked him. It doesn't matter if I do it. I mean, Jesus could come out of the clouds and tuck him in himself, and he'd be like, no, I'm waiting on my mom. I'm waiting on my mom. Yeah. And it's just, he's always been that way. So I still kiss him, tell him I love him, put him in bed, but he will wait until my wife gets home in order for himself to go to sleep. What's even better is if, like, let's say she's at work and he hears her come in and 10 minutes goes by and she doesn't come downstairs. He comes upstairs. Mom, why didn't you come down? And she's like, I had to go to the bathroom. I'll wait on you. And he does. He does. Easton, on the other hand, couldn't care any less about anybody putting him to bed. He just goes and does it himself, and he's like, whatever. Depending on the night. And then some nights he insists, another night he cries when you do it. So we just like, but
Don't
it's,
know what you're gonna
yeah,
get.
you have no idea. It's fascinating when I see kids growing up and how they don't necessarily know how to, like, my kids tell us they love us all the, like, probably too much in my opinion. Like, stop touching me. I don't want another hug. But like, you don't turn that away, right?
Right,
Because then there's going to come a day when I want those hugs and I don't get them.
Yeah.
Like, Adeline won't much longer be able to hug me around the waist. She's going to be hugging my stomach and then my chest. And the next thing I know, she's going to be getting married and it's going to be a whole thing. And so, like, I try to remember that stuff whenever I'm putting them to bed. But now that I've asked you guys that question, how often do you tell Jane that you love her?
Every day, several times.
So it's just crazy to me how different women are than men in that mindset. Now, the big question for everybody, how often do you tell your friends that you love them?
I do a lot.
My
I
best...
think I even do.
I don't.
You
have
do.
friends. I don't
You do.
have any friends.
My How often do you tell the people you work with you love them? My best friend, anytime her and I talk, all right, I love you, we'll talk to you later, like every single time. And I'm like, I don't want to say it's weird, but it has always been like that.
Yeah.
Growing up, we didn't say that to one another. Instead, we used swear words. Like, there was like,
right.
it was, my house was different. We were
Yes,
different.
yes.
We were different. Okay. We do things different in my house. And, and because of that, like, I think that that's kind of ingrained in me, and like trying to find that comfortability with saying that to people that I don't necessarily live with or have a close relationship with.
Yeah.
Alyssa doesn't get away with it. If her and I are on the phone and I'll say, all right, I love you, I'll talk to you later, and she says bye and hangs up, I call her back. I'm like, I said, I love you, goodbye. And she's like, what? I said goodbye. I'm like, I said, I love you. She's like, geez, I love you too.
I did that the other day.
To me?
No, not to
Oh, goodness.
you. You never tell me you love me when you.
I know.
talk
I'll
to
get
you.
better at it, Roger.
All
I
right.
promise I will get
Now,
better.
were you implying the whole friend question to kind of pointed it back to like the community?
Yes.
Yeah.
So really, more so to go back to Elizabeth, how often do you find yourself saying that to your friends? See, isn't it weird?
And I recently told like a friend like, I love you and stuff, and I'm like, this is weird. Like it gives me the
Feels weird. Like it's like ew.
Yeah.
But here's the thing: the part that makes it weird for me, or that it doesn't make it weird for me. The part that like makes my mind think is that her generation probably cares more than any other generation,
right.
but still doesn't say it. Do you know why? Because I ruined those people by not saying it.
Right.
Do you know what I
Right.
mean? It sounds crazy, but those of us who don't say it to one another, like it really messes with the next generation because it becomes uncomfortable. It'll like to the point to where you don't even say I love you to your spouse. Give it another 10 years and we won't even say that to our spouses. Like we'd be like, hey, fist bump, you're cool. Like it just things
That wouldn't fly with my wife.
yeah,
no.
not mine either. Not mine either.
Well, it ain't gonna fly with me.
No, I was gonna say no.
Yeah. But systematically we work those things out by becoming quote unquote uncomfortable with them, or because in today's culture, if I said I love you to a complete stranger standing on the street, they would be freaked out and there would probably be some lawsuit or, I'd get arrested and like
But we could be like, I love you because Jesus loves you.
Yeah, and there are lots of ways that you can do it, but like I just told 2 members of our congregation, I was like, I know it might feel weird having somebody who actually does love and care about you. I
Yeah.
said, but my wife and I love and care about you. And they're fairly new members and they're probably like, what are these people doing? They don't even know me. Yeah, these people are weird. And we are, but it has nothing to do with that.
Right.
Like, we're just naturally weird people. So
But that's
How many
overflow.
boys do you have in your group out of the 13?
There is 2.
Two. I think I was actually thinking about this today. I think for most guys, there's nothing macho about talking about Jesus and God and religion. Like,
Yeah.
I think a lot of males will hold themselves back religiously because they feel it's
Weak. Like
weak. Yeah. They can't let their guards down,
I've heard that before.
I think that's a big thing.
Yeah.
Because I can look at my shop where I work, and that's pretty much it. I mean, I had one guy that I could talk to about God, and he ended up moving on to another job.
Yeah.
And now I can't talk to any other guys about that. And we were very open about it. We talked about it all the time. But yeah, most of the guys, it's very macho. Most time you're joking with the guys, or you're running them into the ground, trying to make them look
Right.
bad
And then-
just for for fun.
You mentioned something about church on the weekend, and then they look at you differently.
Yeah,
and you're
so
like, Wait a minute.
so I think for males it's a lot harder for
Yeah.
females to express those
agree.
things and feel accepted and comfortable with the whole thing, which is probably how do you could probably only overcome that by starting where you are
Yeah.
and trying to
Right.
get
yeah.
Right.
Being
somebody
okay
while
with
they're
it at that
young.
age.
Yeah.
The interesting part is because that correlates specifically to the statistic that I tell everybody. It's like something like there's a 74% chance of a family all getting saved if dad gets
dad
saved
does.
first.
Right.
And that number drops less than half if mom gets saved first. But it is easier to get mom into church. It's easier to get mom to, I don't want to say to become involved and
Right.
to like really form a relationship with Christ, because that emotional attachment is easier for a woman than it is for a man. And I don't want to say it's easier, but
It's more natural.
more accepted.
Yeah,
Like for guys, we're like, oh no, we just got to like catch a deer and stab it with a knife. And like, we like
Catch a deer.
yeah, that's what like, can you imagine running through the woods and jumping on its back and stabbing it with a knife? But that's what like guys are like, manly, throw axes and like drive cars and
Not
like,
this man.
yeah. And I am the exact
That's what I'm
opposite. But
saying.
here's what's funny is I still find myself
Right.
very reserved, even
Very
in church,
masculine. Yeah.
because I feel like if I get too far one way or the other, that I'm viewed differently, and I don't want that, because I don't want to be divisive one way or another. Like, I mean, if I came in here like, and I always joke, Stephen Furtick. Have you guys ever seen Stephen Furtick when he
Yeah.
first started preaching? He was this mousy, skinny little guy, and now he's got these big muscles, and he's like he's a man's man. Like he's the one that wants to like, yeah. And Pastor Tommy Miller from Legacy. Love him to death. I love listening to his messages, but he like catches catfish with his hands.
Yeah.
Like he's like a man's man.
He literally has Bigfoot, like a huge wooden Bigfoot, like out on his yard. I love it.
Yeah, so he's like a man's man, and I'm like, not so much. Like,
Well, if I think about it, my favorite time period, Civil War period, if you were a very, very religious man, it was very manly back then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I I mean,
Is it
people
just-
really looked up to you if you're a religious person. And to me, I think maybe somewhere in the late 50s, 60s, that started to change. Because, I mean, think about it, like Elvis Presley, Johnny Cash, they got away with making gospel albums.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it was still looked upon as kind of a very masculine thing
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
do.
Yep.
And after that, it kind of seems like it fell off and kind of started going the other way, where, you know, now it's not looked at quite as a masculine
No,
thing.
definitely not. We are better off in the world to say that, oh well, yeah, I go to church on Sunday. Like, and you know, this is a big one for me. I struggle because I have a lot of fellow believers inside of the company that I work at. None of them, except for one female, are Pentecostal. And so when like they're like, "You're what?" and I'm like, "Yeah, it's a Pentecostal church." They're like speaking in tongues, Pentecostal. I'm
right.
like, mm-hmm.
What about it?
And they're like, "Whoa, what? What? Like that's you're crazy.
They're
You're
looking at you
crazy."
different,
And I've
yeah.
got this one girl who's sitting in the corner of my office speaking in tongues while they're talking about me. Like it's one of
Keyboard.
those like, yeah, it's one of those. It's so strange to have to like almost feel like you have to hide some of those
Yes.
things.
Yeah, it is, especially Pentecostal.
Yeah, and that's where we get into that. Like, but if you look at our community, we have Denison Foursquare, we have Bethel, we have us. Obviously, we have
Christian Temple.
Christian Temple, Assemblies. Who else do we
Church
have?
of God, right?
Who else do we have locally that's Pentecostal? General consensus is we actually probably have more Pentecostal churches in this community than we do non-Pentecostal churches in
Yeah.
this community.
Yeah.
It's like, it's not weird. It's just hard for some people to understand because some of the larger churches are not Pentecostal.
Right.
And that's what makes the difference.
Don't you think it's a lack of passion?
Oh, yes.
You know, the
That's the
world
word I
has
was
lost that
thinking of, yeah.
passion for Christ.
Yeah.
Like back in the 50s, like it was husband, wife, kids all went to church.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
not just a wife. And somehow or another, from the 50s till now, a lot got lost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and Alyssa and I just had this. I don't even remember what we were talking about. I was driving home and we were in this full debate. What happened was, so it used to be, and Roger, you can probably attest to this, and I'm not picking on your age. I'm just,
Oh, here
I'm
we
being
go.
genuine. I'm being
The
genuine.
age thing again.
There was a time when you didn't really travel outside of maybe the
Right.
two towns that you lived in and you got your news locally.
Right.
And then, so like for me as a kid growing up, as my dad as a kid growing up, going to New Philly was a
big
treat.
deal,
Oh, yeah.
right?
Was a
That's
treat.
trip.
Okay. For me as a kid growing up, going to Canton was a treat. But for me as an adult, it is nothing for me to drive to Cleveland 3 times a week. So what's happened is we have become less and less connected with our own with our own families.
Yeah.
Because we're more connected with the rest of the world.
exploring.
Right. It's so much easier and it's so easy to say, I'm not going to go to church on Sunday because we're going to fly to Orlando.
Yeah, the world's a lot smaller now.
Correct. Correct. And so we've gotten into this mindset that it doesn't matter whether or not we attend church as a family or, and you know, what's even more crazy is I know husbands and wives that go to different churches. Figure that out. They both get up and go to church on Sunday morning, but go to different churches.
Yeah.
It's crazy to me. It's absolutely crazy to me. And I mean, I'm talking locally. I know
Yeah.
people
Oh,
that
yeah.
do that.
So you, okay, I'm trying to get it.
Like-
But the word says, "A house divided will not stand."
How
does that work?
And maybe it doesn't work. Maybe they just don't talk about it and they pretend like it's not part of their lives. I don't know, but
But how, like, every Sunday, it is your life.
yeah,
Like,
every Sunday they get up and they go to different churches.
I got no trouble getting my wife here. on Sunday.
Well, in her defense, she's not exactly. I mean, she's better now, but my gosh, until that surgery, she'd hardly stand up. Have to get her up off the floor.
Yeah, that's true. that was a chore.
Well, Elizabeth, when were you first conscious of starting to have a relationship? How young were you?
Probably 10.
Can you pinpoint what that was that kind of was the seed for all of that? Was there one particular, moment or?
No, not that really. Like,
Okay.
I was going to church with my dad. I think that's really what started it. And Like I think it was just the worship music. I think that's what made me like.
Yeah.
I get it. I'm the same way. I connect with the music, which makes the relationship
Sure.
easier.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just trying to think like, okay, so when you're starting that, when somebody is that young, you know, how can we, what is it that might attract more younger people
Well,
to
that was going to be my next
have
question.
that,
Yeah.
you know?
So, as a how do I say this nicely? As a more senior congregation, as a more experienced congregation,
There you go.
how do we draw young people your age? Like, what are the things that, and obviously you can't answer for everybody. Well, actually, the whole generation is resting upon your shoulders, so get it right. But how do we engage that age group? Because we're all, let's be honest, those of us sitting in this room are old.
Why are you looking
Well,
at
what's
me?
your process, Elizabeth, for doing that besides, you know, maybe putting a poster up on the wall of the school or something like that?
You
What
think
are
we
some
should
of the
get
other
posters
things?
on the school
Maybe
walls?
We'll just put them on every telephone
every
pole
telephone
in the Twin
pole.
cities. Yeah.
We'll make
Hey,
Lizzie
Roger.
go through
Yeah.
every single locker room and put a little
Yeah.
card.
Yeah.
For,
Roger,
What?
I have a job for you.
Sorry. Sorry.
Seriously, I thought about that.
It's not a terrible idea.
No.
Yard signs, whatever. But anyhow,
But yeah, so what are some of the things that you're doing right now to try to attract more people?
I love talking about Jesus. That's like the one thing I love talking about, and I always like go up to different people and say like, oh, you should like join my group, like, and it's like the best thing ever. Like I love talking about Jesus. So like,
Yeah.
it's
Well, what's the main thing you say about Jesus when you bring him up?
Y'all need Jesus.
it just all depends. Like I usually get a feeling to what to say to different people.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's really
And I think that's good that she's kind of testing her water. Like,
Yeah.
okay, who's this person?
Discernment.
What can I
Yeah.
connect with them with? And then, you know, build that relationship
Yeah.
with them and then slowly start to
yeah.
throw some hints in there.
Yeah. So the interesting part for us, because like we're a destination.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like we're a brick and mortar building that people have to want to come here in order to come.
Yes.
Like they don't accidentally walk in here on
Right,
Sunday morning.
right,
Like they
right,
don't
right.
stumble in and go, "Oh, I was looking for Giant Eagle."
yeah.
Like that doesn't.
Yeah.
It's like. There's another idea. We're gonna get a Giant Eagle sign and put it on the front of the building, and then everybody will think they're coming to Giant Eagle and they'll be in church.
Perfect.
There we go. Planned. Hey, Roger,
What?
can you put that sign up?
Sure.
No. But because we're a brick and mortar, like we're a destination, we don't get the opportunity to have people like people aren't going to just walk by us.
I was gonna say,
standing
especially
out
where we're at.
front and say, "Oh, hey, you should come on in." Like we have to make a conscious
We have
effort
to meet them.
to find people, meet them again, physically where they are,
Physically, yeah.
and mentally, emotionally where they are, in order to engage them here. So
Well,
you,
that's what's great about what
Yeah.
you're doing, Elizabeth, is you're taking it outside of the destination.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's-
you're creating new destinations.
And that's the idea. Like evangelism, that's exactly what it is. I mean, pure and simple, it's doing exactly what Elizabeth is doing and going out and saying, "Hey, let me tell you about Jesus.
Yeah.
Let's find a time to talk." You know, when you take Jesus to the coffee shop and you start meeting with people in the coffee shop, it does something different for
Yep.
the gospel.
Yep.
It's not, you're not just sitting inside of a building anymore. You've
Taking it somewhere.
Yeah.
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 Just like we talked about Wednesday nights, like where, you know,
How do we change that? Yeah. Because church isn't about the building. And yes, we culturally have decided that we need to meet in the same place
Yeah.
every Sunday morning. Like that's kind of the norm.
Yes.
That's changing every day. You see less and less brick and mortar churches, and you see more home churches and non-traditional church models, which are like coffee shops through the week turned into a church on Sunday morning. Like you see more and more of that every day. But we don't have that luxury.
Yeah.
Like we have a building.
I said we could make it an escape room.
We could. Yeah, we could. We could. Of course, then I would never get out, and then I would just be here forever.
You'd be part of the escape
Yeah,
room.
I'm part of the escape room at that point.
Roger's thinking, isn't it already an escape room?
Yeah, Roger doesn't get out as it stands. But we can't wrap our heads around going out and doing exactly what Elizabeth is doing. You know, we want to, and I was just thinking about a a large event like hosting and I don't want to call it a revival, because I think when you use that word for something that you are planning, you're saying, hey, God, you're going to have to come do this, because
Yeah.
I've got all these people coming, and you're going to need to like make this happen. And I think revival is natural, but to have a large meeting,
To have a gathering.
and allow people to come and worship, and then really get the word delivered in a strong way. And I think, man, that would be a fantastic thing to do, but somebody has to put that together.
Right.
It doesn't just happen.
Right.
There's promotion that comes with that. And while that sounds silly to say from a church end, it's true,
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely.
because people aren't just going to show up.
No.
Yeah.
You have to have yard signs printed. You have to do like, you have to talk to people about it. Otherwise it's not going to happen.
You'll need a committee.
Right. Had you not talked to people about God's group or God's gang and just showed up on that Tuesday morning and just walked in and went, well, nobody showed up. There are some churches that do that think that people would just come. Like, they know
If
it's a
our
church.
doors are open,
It says church on the front. Like, they'll know
come.
and they'll come.
If you build it, they will come.
Yeah. This is not the field of dreams. It is not the field of dreams. But I wanted to share this because we're getting close to time. Not that we have to end, but I wanted to share this. Last Sunday, what was our count? 63?
Yeah, 60-some.
60-some. It was mid to low 60s. It was a very low number for us. We haven't been that low in several months. It's really low. We had the best offering we've had in months. Had the best offering we had in months. And I always say this, and I continue to say it. It is not about growth in numbers. It's about spiritual growth. And I believe that when we are faithful and do what we're told to do, God will always be faithful as well.
Amen.
I think he'll continue to pour out blessings that we can't imagine. And I think that that's what's going to happen to Elizabeth's group. I think God's gang will continue to grow leaps and bounds, whether it's in the middle school one or in high school whenever you get there, but that will continue to grow. And then you'll be able to help shepherd those people into congregations, into bodies of Christ. Like, you're going to be able to say to somebody, hey, maybe my church isn't the right church for you, but there is a right church for you.
Right. Exactly.
There is a right church for you.
Yeah, like, she's not out there like, come to my church,
Yes,
come to my church.
exactly.
My church is the one.
Exactly.
She's just making sure they have that relationship.
Yeah. And preaching the gospel is what's most important, like being able to share that with people. So I think it's a big deal.
And with her having an evangelist spirit, she can very boldly say, you need Jesus.
Obviously.
Exactly.
Because when you're an evangelist, you blow into a place, you blow the place up, and
Yeah.
you blow on.
Yep. Yeah. And thank you for saying that, because I think it's important for people to understand that. I think evangelism is incredibly important.
Oh, yeah.
But I always tell people to put into perspective, like when you go to let's call it a tent revival, and I'm just going to say it, and it's a manufactured move of the Spirit.
Right.
That evangelist will move in there. He'll preach some good messages and he'll be like, healed, and walk off. And then the pastor is left to pick up the pieces when that person doesn't get what they expected to
Right,
get.
right.
So there's definitely perspective in that. That's why fivefold ministry is important, because it all has to go hand in hand. It has to go hand in hand.
See, the Holy Spirit comes in and he blows the place up. And that guy buzzes on, and they're like, well, Pastor, now what are we going to do with me?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
What are we going to do with me?
You know what's fun? Yeah, right. And I'm like, whoa. I wasn't there. I don't know. It's like, I don't know what just happened. And
These
it's,
are my monkeys to take care of.
yeah, not my circus, not my monkeys. It's funny because but your group will in essence do that exact thing when they get to that senior year of high school. If they've committed through all of that, they're going to go, okay, I'm graduating. What now? And they're going to have a placement, basically. Like part of the responsibility of that is going to be helping them figure out what is it
Where
that they want. Where is it that they want to end up? What do they want to do with their lives? So.
I got to ask, do you have any plans like in the next year? Where do you see God's gang? What do you want for it? Do you see anything?
I want more people to come to Jesus.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
Good answer.
Good answer. Good answer. Good answer.
Well, my next point was going to be there's always strength in numbers. So you can have a lot of young people that perhaps they do attend a church, perhaps they do go to Sunday school, and they go to their regular school and they kind of want to talk to other kids about it.
Yeah.
But it's generally not cool to do.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
So, but with you having this group, they have somewhere to go.
Right.
They have people, that they can go talk
Yes.
to
Yeah.
about those things and actually form that relationship. strength in numbers. So
Yeah.
that's a positive thing.
Maggie, you listening?
Yeah.
Then the only other thing that we could do to help equip her to do better is we could get them all big sticks that they could hit people
Perfect.
with whenever they don't come to the
Y'all
group.
need Jesus.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's the Jesus stick. It's the Jesus stick. Lord have mercy. Why do you guys let me do this stuff? Like, I really hope my wife's not listening to this right now because I'm going to get in more trouble than I'm already in. Good night.
That's impossible.
Yeah, that is probably it. Probably is actually impossible at this point. But so your group will continue to grow through one more year with you at the helm in the junior high. But now the nice part is I'm sure you're taking some of those kids with you into the high school.
Yeah.
So
there's going to be like one person.
just one other one.
Yeah. Most of them are in 6th grade and 8th grade.
Okay. So they're going to some of them are going to go on before you.
So
and
do
then-
you think they'll kind of do something before you get there?
Hopefully.
Hopefully. Yeah.
So do you have can you encourage one of them to keep up in
Like
high school what it is
delegate.
that you're doing? That's great. That's really great. Does anybody else have any other important questions?
Now, will they be God's gang or will it be a different name?
I don't know.
Only time will tell.
Only time will tell. Anything else? No? Negative? No? Well, Elizabeth, we always like to let people pray at the end of the service. Would you be comfortable praying for us?
Sure.
Okay. Give me just a second. We'll get everything all queued up. But
You had to know that was going to happen.
yeah, I was actually...
They gave me the hardest one last week with finances. I'm like, guys.
Lord, give us your money. All right. Let's just bow our heads together.
Dear Heavenly Father, we just want to thank you and praise you and glorify your name. We know you're going to have great plans for this church and for God's gang, and we know that more people are going to come to know you over these past years, or if they watch this, they know that it doesn't matter how old or how young you are, you can always bring people to the Lord. And we just want to glorify your name through all of this. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Amen.